we didn't look at validation rules and input masks in the last few lessons, so let's have a look at that now. Hopefully we haven't got too many records in, so there's no mistakes in there already. But the whole point of validation rules are that, let's get this up. Validation rules are used to make sure that data input to a database is correct, or at least it's sensible. It limits data entry to help reduce errors in data entry. So for example, a validation rule could be used for when a number is input, a phone number for example, it's a certain amount of numbers. So maybe it begins with a certain number, and it makes sure that it's not over 11 numbers. For example, in the UK, mobile phone numbers are 11 digits. So it would make sure that you didn't type in too many, or you could program it so that it makes sure it didn't type in too few. Similarly, same sort of thing could apply for entering email addresses, to make sure that there's an @ symbol, to make sure that there's a .com at the end or a .org. And it could also be used to make sure that, for example, in the case of our movie database, let's say for example for ratings, to make sure that they haven't put a mistake in when it comes to inputting the rating. So it's either got to be U, PG, 12, 15 or 18, or any other classification that they might be. So let's have a little look through and see how this would work. So we'll start with let's start with films. So we'll open our films table up. There we are, and we'll go to design view. Okay, so obviously I can't have two tables open at the same time because they're related, they're connected to each other. Okay, so here in the films table you can see that I put an example down here, but that's just a description. Now if we I've definitely selected age rating, so when I change the rules it will be for this particular field name. There we are. So we're putting U, or no, that's lowercase, or 12, or PG, or 15, or 18. Have I missed any? U, PG, 12, 15, 18. Okay, that's all I can think of at the moment. Okay, so now that we've written our validation rule in, we also go to the next line that says validation text, and we just tell the user, so this is what comes up in case of an error. So we give a message saying you entered an incorrect classification. You must enter one of the following. And I'll just copy and paste that, whoops, to make this simple. Okay, so let's try that out. Click on save. Yes, yes again. And if we go to view, there we are. Right, so for example, I didn't finish Guardians of the Galaxy. What was it, 12? I don't know. So 12, and that works. Okay, it lets me go to the next field. If I made a mistake, for example, if I typed in 13 by accident, it should say, there we are, we have a pop-up and it says, you entered an incorrect classification. You must enter one of the following, blah, blah, blah. So there's one example of a validation rule. It stops us from typing in the incorrect data. Okay, there's one. Alright, now let's go back again and let's enter a validation rule for release date. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to say to make sure that we don't make a mistake entering the correct date, let's add a validation rule to make sure that all entered dates are after, let's say, 1930, for example. Okay, so let's say the way we do that is more than or equal to hash, let's say 1st of January 1930, and then hash again. Okay. And I'll give an explanation of the validation rules and some examples in a bit as well. So you must enter a date after 1930. Okay, so let's save it. Click on yes, yes, and let's come back again. Now if I was to put down release date for, let's say, Guardians of the Galaxy as 15th of February 1929, it should say you must enter a date after 1930. However, if I change that to 1930, now it works. Now, even though that's not the correct date, at least what the validation rule is doing is it's limiting me from making mistakes. So I can't make I can't put in a weird date. Now what I could do again is, let's go back, let's delete that. Okay, and let's add something else. Let's say that it has to be before 1930 and less than, oops, and less than now, which just tells Python to make sure that the release date can't be after today. So we can't put a date in the future. So it must be between 1930 and today. Exclamation mark. Let's save that. Let's try that. Let's put a date in, a release date. Let's say that, but let's change the year to 2020. And we get an error message saying you must enter a date after 1930 and today. Oh, actually my text is wrong. Oh, let's delete that. It should say and before today. And let's say and present day. There we are. Okay, so that should work as well. Next, let's think of another rule. Let's close this table down. And let's put a validation rule in for customers. Okay. What can we set our validation rules for again? So if we look at date of birth, we could say, let's go in with the example we just did. For date of birth, we want to make sure that none of our customers are over 100. So we're in 2017 now. So we want to say it's more than equal to, let's say the 1st of January 1917, and again let's do now as our, and now, and less than now. Okay, so oh, invalid syntax. Oh yes, didn't put hash on the end there. Okay, if we save that, that should work. That's worked. Okay, and let's put a rule down as well. So all customers must be between let's say customers date of birth must be between we said 1917 and today. Okay, that should be our error there. Okay, now for phone we said 11 digits, didn't we? So for mobile phones, so what we're going to say is the validation rule is that it must be, it's 11 digits with a 0, but we require them to start with 44. Okay, the way we're going to address the issue of the phone number is we're going to use, instead of a validation rule, we're going to use an input mask. Now, both for validation rules and input masks, I will give you a link to websites that show you the codes that can be used for both input masks and validation rules. And whenever I need it, I just look it up. This isn't something I've committed to memory. Okay, but basically, for an input mask, first of all, we want to say that they must enter 4-4. So in speech marks, I'm going to say 4-4. That's a must. And then we need 10 digits after that. The way to do that is we use zeros. Basically, they have to enter a number. There's no choice. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's give that a go. Save that validation rule. And if I go to there, oh, it's already got it for me. Plus 4-4 is already there. We're gonna say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that works. Okay, if I were to put in a few less, so for example, and go to the next field, it says you entered an inappropriate, isn't appropriate for the input mask. It should be 4-4 specified by however many digits. It'd be nice with a better digit. What happens if I try to put in more characters? So let's say for example 4-4, I need to put in 10. What if I put in 11? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Actually, it doesn't allow me to type in anymore, which is good. Okay, let's go back for a second. And at the front of that, let's put a plus there as well. So it just looks more like how we're used to seeing it. Let's put a caption down as well, a message. So, you must enter a digit number. Proceeding 0. So basically, let's save that. Let's go back again. Okay, so if I was to remove that, let's remove that one because it doesn't have the plus. There we are. It's got a plus 4-4 for me. And I'm going to type in whatever the number is. Oh, sugar. Number lock is off. There we are. So, that works.